You up to speed on the Matthew Terry case in Tampa, Florida. He's accused of killing Kay Baker. They say all spinning out of an argument the evening of the crime, and all because she sort of kind of was trying to dance with a guy or was wanting to dance with a guy. It's a little vague, and we've seen the CCTV footage makes it far less clear exactly what, if anything, was happening. But the prosecution suggesting that Matthew Terry just kind of lost it, ultimately kills her. Now he's facing the death penalty. Let's talk to witness testimony here from one of the folks who was there that night as the ramp up to what the prosecution says was just good old-fashioned first-degree murder.
You about 10 o'clock at night, roughly, at the landing. You're already there, your wife's there, the defendant, Ms. Baker, are all there, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember there coming a moment where your wife got up, went to the bathroom, came back, sat down, and then there was some sort of like discussion between the defendant and your wife?
Correct.
Tell us about that.
So going back what you said, Matt had went to the bathroom shortly after Kelly, my wife, and Kay went to the bathroom. I don't know exactly the time frame of how long that was when Matt came back to the table where I was sitting. Him and I were talking a few minutes. My wife came back. Shortly as we were sitting, Matt had asked my Kelly who Kay was dancing with.
And did you at that moment have any idea what he was talking about?
I had no idea. I was not inside.
And so I'm not going to ask you to repeat word for word everything everybody said, but I mean, can you tell me what the general tenor of the discussion was in that moment? Did your wife say, oh yeah, she was dancing with this guy?
So her explanation was her and Kay were inside the bar. They were having a drink. There was talking, chatting going on. There was music playing inside the bar. Must have been a popular song that they liked. They just kind of did a little dance, raised their arms, hoo-rah-rah. There was a gentleman that passed him. She had said he was an elderly guy and that Kay did not dance with anybody at the bar, and to drop it, there was no big deal.
And did the defendant just immediately drop it and say, hey, I'm sorry, or did the conversation continue?
He did not say he was sorry, but the conversation was dropped.
And so the conversation ends, and then a few minutes later, does the conversation come up again for some reason?
I think he did ask more questions about it.
Okay, and asked who?
Kelly.
All right. And did they again have to address this sort of topic of dancing with another man?
Yes, and again it was reiterated that don't worry about it, don't be jealous. It was an elderly guy, that's not Kay, she's not who she is that she would be dancing with anybody. You know, you guys are boyfriend, girlfriend, just, get over it, it's not a big deal.
At any point did you ever notice Mr. Terry getting up from the table and then going over to Kay Baker, who was standing talking at another table with some other people?
Yes, I did.
And you don't know what they were talking about in that moment, I would assume.
I do not, I was not close enough.
But then did they, after that conversation took place, come back to the table and again start talking about the accusation of dancing with another man?
So when I noticed that they were talking, he came back first.
Okay, and then did Kay come over and start asking your wife about it, about the whole accusation again?
Yeah, shortly after she came back to the table.
And so are they, again, your wife and Kay Baker, now having to explain to the defendant what did or did not happen as far as dancing?
Yes.
And is the defendant still insistent on, I saw it, I was there, or something to that effect?
It appeared it started to get a little bit more heated. I think he became more just aggravated, wasn't happy with what he saw with the situation. He didn't understand why Kay wouldn't confess, she wouldn't own up to her dancing with this specific individual.
You use the word own up to. Do you remember him saying something to the effect of like just own up to it or just confess or something like that?
I did hear that.
So there's now a second conversation taking place about this allegation of dancing. Is that correct?
Correct.
At some point, did that conversation then again draw to a close?
He had talked to me a couple times about it, just bringing it up casually. He was explaining to me why he didn't understand why this happened. I had told him, don't worry about it, forget about it. I highly doubt this happened. But it was brought up a few times with...
All right, so now you're talking about a moment where you're having like a sort of one-on-one conversation, you and him.
Yes.
Are you seated right next to each other?
Yes.
So you're talking to him from just a couple feet away?
Correct.
And I want you to describe what you noticed about the tenor of his voice, the tone of his voice, his demeanor in general. Did he seem happy about this?
He was not happy. My thoughts were, as he kept bringing it up, he seemed aggravated. When you bring up something like that with another individual and another female and male, to me that would mean there's obviously some jealousy involved. He just wanted probably clarification of truly what happened
Okay, so let's put this testimony in context here. This, again, is the prosecution case. This guy, Mr. Andrews, was there that night at the Landing Bar and Grill, and he was with his wife, who we heard testify already. They are friends of the victim, Kay Baker. So, Richard Schoenstein, go. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's interesting to me. They're trying to prove two things. One, that there wasn't anything worth getting that upset or jealous about. But two, the defendant really did get upset and jealous about it. It's sort of contradictory, those 2 points. If there wasn't really any dancing, if the victim wasn't really showing any interest in any other men, why would that lead to jealousy? Certainly, why would it lead to the amount of jealousy that would end up in a fight and a brutal murder? On the other hand, I think they're trying to show that the defendant is unstable just in the fact that he got so jealous about nothing. And that if he got that jealous about nothing, he might be the kind of guy who would spiral further out of control, and that's how you get to the murder.
So this is not a ramping up to the ultimate event, but it's just a look inside his personality to suggest that if this little nothing event triggered him, maybe something else gets even more.
Why did this guy do this? I mean, lots of us have been in a situation where we've been with someone who maybe has looked another way and we've gone, what's going on here? I'm not going to tell any stories, but, it doesn't usually lead to murder. So they have to explain why it would have or did here.
Okay. So, Catherine, what about the fact that these guys, and that's the husband and wife combo we've heard from today testifying about what happened that night, they lost a friend. And I'm guessing in their minds, they think the guy sitting across from them in the courtroom, Matthew Terry, did it.
I believe they did. And the testimony of his wife, that witness's wife, actually even corroborated and added more information in terms of that Matthew Terry actually being aggravated lasted way longer, up to the time where that witness and his wife were waiting for their Uber driver, and his wife received a call from Kay Baker saying that, can you please explain again to Matthew Terry that it was nothing, I wasn't dancing with anyone, and she could hear him say, okay, but to have to reignite that issue while they were driving home, that just shows how long he has been brewing with that anger, and that's what the prosecution is trying to say. And I agree with Rich that they're trying to show that if he can get angry with something so little, then he is an unstable kind of person.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's just insecure, he's just a guy, but it sounds like there may have been a number of these events over time piling up, and then the proverbial last straw, and, he loses it. I think that's an argument the prosecution certainly might make.